Stay tuned for another episode of the Coming Soon podcast with sPidA.
Hello, everybody. sPidA here once again, Coming Soon podcast here in San Antonio, Texas, being joined by Colin Bressler, also in San Antonio, man. How are you, bro?
Great to be here, man. Rainy here today, but it's great to be talking to you.
No, for sure. And I was gonna say, man, the weather got pretty crappy earlier, man. I know it's been like that pretty much all week, but yeah, we're indoors, so weather's a little bit nicer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But man, I mean, of course, I've been having the privilege, man, of having you guys jump on this, bro, and I really appreciate your time. I mean, time is an essence, but jumping on this, I mean, of course, you are local. I mean, born and raised San Antonio?
No, I'm not born and raised, but I mean, I moved here with my wife in 2007. She was raised here.
Okay.
And so we came here, and I love it. I mean, we like I said, I've been here 2007, can't do the math, like 17 years.
Yeah.
So love it. I mean, it's an awesome community, beautiful weather, beautiful place.
No, for sure, man. I mean, of course, born and raised here myself, as far as San Antonio, it's always been home. It's always been a lot of culture. When it comes to movies, man, I mean, of course, there's a lot of local talent, I mean, the fact that we get those implanted like yourself here from other states or other cities, man, I mean, it's truly remarkable, man, because there's a lot of different ideas, different, work that comes into these things. But of course, man, I mean, I wanted to bring up a few things. One of them being your upbringing into the film industry, man. When did you realize that you wanted to get into film?
So my parents were huge film buffs. I remember growing up, my dad and my mom had this massive VHS collection. I'm a child of the 80s, so that's my backstory right there. And I used to just watch all these movies, and there were all these movies from 50s, 60s, 70s, and then 80s, obviously, because my dad, they would record stuff off of HBO back in the day. And, I would watch everything. I mean, The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, all these different crazy movies, 2001, A Space Odyssey, Doctor Strange. We would just watch all these movies, and I just fell in love with filmmaking. But I didn't know, being honest with you, and I think this is kind of a thing, right, in our society, is I didn't really know it to be a job. Obviously, I understood that people were making these movies, but when you're younger, and this is all the way through till high school, I just didn't really think about it as in that way. Now, my friend and I used to steal his father's 8mm video camera back in the day. This is early 90s, and we would take it and we'd do these ridiculous movies in his backyard, just him, me. We'd recruit friends. So I loved making movies. I just didn't think of it as a job. It's just something was fun to do, right? Yeah. And it wasn't until high school that I got involved in the sort of AV, group. We would do the morning news in high school and all that stuff. And they kind of stuck me with camera because, to be honest with you, sitting in your chair, I couldn't. I was terrible on camera. I would mess up my lines and all this kind of stuff. So they started having me do camera, and I enjoyed it, and I liked doing camera. And then they, my professor, my teacher in high school for that sort of group was do a career, pick a career and do a whole paper on it. And I picked, filmmaking director. And it was then that I was I think I want to go to college for this, and it was sophomore year, high school. And I was I think I want to do this, or try, go to film school. And so I went to film school. That's kind of the genesis of the whole thing for me.
You see, the fact that you brought up that you guys used to, have take that, I guess, was it a VHS camera at that time or a camcorder?
It was a camcorder, the tapes were this big.
There you go. And I mean, even back then, I mean, you say you recruited a lot of people, and it kind of goes full circle, because even now, I mean, in the film industry, it's you kind of have to do that again. You have to get people to volunteer for the most part. I mean, you guys always cast as far as the main roles and everything else, but when it comes to having extras or just people that want to get involved and help, I mean, that's basically what it takes, right? Just for people to volunteer.
Yeah. It doesn't, from my experience, it doesn't change until you reach an area where there's no such thing unlimited budget, or to a point where the budget's there, right? So everyone's coming to you. But until that, I mean, I'm still that kid technically in the backyard, like making films, right? It's just like I'm like, hey, can you do this or can you do that? Or the biggest thing I find now is like trying to meet creative people around the city of San Antonio, like-minded, that want to build infrastructure to make films and help me use, whether it be using my skills or me using their skills, whatever, to make films. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's like it's a larger version of what I was once doing in my teens,
Yeah, man. And let me ask you, because those videos, man, I mean, you guys made movies. Are those still around? Do you still have copies of those?
I know. I wish. I know. It was a friend of mine, Frank St. Jacques, really good friend of mine in high school and junior high. It was his, like I said, it was his dad's camera. Yeah. We were dummies. We didn't know anything, man. We didn't know what a light was for filming. We didn't know what barely understood the camera, honestly. We would just film, and I don't even know. I would be shocked if Frank even knows where those tapes are. I don't talk to him anymore. Not, we just grew apart. But it's like, I would love, oh man, I would love to see those films.
No, yeah. Just so you can go back and see how far you've gotten, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also like us at, I don't know, 15, 14 years old, running around doing stupid things. So, I mean, oh my God, that would be amazing to be able to.
Let me ask you, what were those movies about? Do you remember? I mean, as far as storyline?
Yeah, one of them, like a lot of them were like spoofs of famous movies. Like one of them was Rocky, but it was a character called Garthy, and Garthy instead of Rock. It was the same Rocky story. Yeah. It was a bully, high school bully, like junior high bully story, and like Garthy gets trained, and then he ends up beating up the bully, but totally stupid, like I said. Nonsense. We did another one where it was I don't know if you had these, but we had all these G.I. Joe figures, these little action figures. So like one of them, this movie was like almost 2 hours long, by the way, and we just made this movie. And you could see our hands, and like the camera,
nice, bro.
We would do the voice. We were like, "Hey, you, get out of here!" No, I'm gonna, And then there was like fake explosions, and it was silly. 2 hours.
You see, let me say this, because something like that I would definitely sit through, man. I mean, that's my sense of humor. Is just that, I mean, I'm in that era where we used to sit down and watch Beavis and Butthead, right? I mean, mumbling about something, we just didn't care. It was just entertaining, but that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, so it was just stuff like that. We did. It was mostly silly comedy, or like really stupid, like comedy horror stuff. It was mostly like that, where it was just like I said, parodies on movies we liked. I was kind of at a time too where Frank and I particularly. Frank wasn't interested in film, and he didn't go into film. I think he does some writing, or did some writing, but we were just both kind of at that time exploring, watching more interesting films. So we would kind of steal from our parents' collections and watch these weird movies or whatever. And I was just kind of like, that was kind of the first time in my life where I was starting to learn like about all the different types of movies, and it was cool, But like I said, I never thought about, I'm gonna, this could be a job. We were just messing around,
No, you see, and when was it that you realized that, what? I mean, you can make a living out of this? I mean, was it like
it was once I started doing camera, and then I did that research project in like sophomore or junior year, when I was like, it wasn't like I can make money. Because I didn't, I was like, I think I want to try to do this for a living, for like, and then I learned, I was like, okay, so what do you do? And I was like, okay, I researched, and was like, oh, you go to a college for this. I knew I was going to go to college. I didn't know what exactly for, but then it was like, oh, you know what? I want to go to college for this. Like that's what I want to do. I want to go to film school. So it's like that's where it set me off on the path.
Man, and let me ask you, because of course, going through school, I mean, was that here, college? Was it like a trade school, or was it like an actual like college? I mean, where did you go to for that?
Yeah, so I went to School Visual Arts in New York City. It's an art school, like a 4-year graduate,
Oh
uh,
man,
accredited college. Yeah, I was very lucky. I mean, SVA is an amazing art school. Like especially back then, it was famous for its animation studio. Back then, they like Disney. I remember I would see it. Disney every year. Disney and other big studios that do famous for animation, they would show up and like at the end of the year, and they would meet with the the kids that were graduating to get them jobs in Disney or wherever. Now it was just amazing. But yeah, the film school was very like we were kind of in New York. We were kind of known as kind of the renegade indie film school.
right?
NYU, New York University was kind of known. That's like Spike Lee went there and people like that, Oliver Stone. That they were the big time, and we were kind of like this smaller renegade school, with like much lower budget, kind of running around with cameras and all that kind of thing. That was kind of our culture, which honestly this is the first time I thought about it, but it's not surprising that I ended up doing what I'm doing because I went to that school. Kind of the culture there, I think I'm fulfilling the culture there actually.
You see, but I mean, in a sense, I mean, I kind of like that because it's a lot more hands-on. You get to practice. You don't just get to sit in a room all day. I mean, you get to go out there and actually, okay, you know what? It's too bright. It's too cold. You know what I mean? Like you work with the elements, should I say? So, it makes sense to me, man. I mean, I would have preferred doing something like that.
Yeah, that's why I chose that school. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get the greatest grades, so it wasn't like great schools were kicking the door down to bring me in. But what I liked about SVA, I did get accepted into a couple of places. Was that they were, of all the other sort of art schooly type places, they were the ones that were like, it was the one school that was like, we're gonna give you a camera day one. And I was like, okay, yeah, I want to learn. And I right when I got there, man, I was like obsessed. I was just like, every day I want to learn something. I want to be touching cameras. And I remember early in my freshman year, I had a class where there were a couple seniors in the class. And I went up to one of the seniors and I was like, hey, you're a vet. You're about to graduate. Like, what can I do? Like, what's your advice to me right now to elevate myself right now and to learn, and he was like, get on every graduate project possible. He's like, there's a board in the hallway over there. There's on that board, there's jobs. They're free. They're not paid jobs, but there's someone's looking for a sound guy for their thesis film, or someone's looking for their student, you know what I mean? And I did right after that, I started just doing all these projects, at any position, never got paid a dime, and long, crazy hours. But it's really that those experiences taught me all kinds of stuff like focus pulling and camera assisting and all this kind of stuff. And I made some amazing collaborators that taught me a lot and brought me onto movies that they had done after. You know what I mean? It was just an amazing collaboration.
No, for sure. And I was gonna say too, because I mean, the fact that you got to learn a little bit of everything. I mean, I know you were behind the scenes, but I mean, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, I talked about this a while back to another guest, and I mean, I was asking him. I said, man, you know what? Is there such a thing as somebody coming in and thinking, okay, you know what? I'm gonna be an actor. This is what I want to do, and it turns out they're better off doing something else, which they love and enjoy, and they were like, yeah, because there's no there's no map, there's no, I mean, it kind of picks you, in a sense. I mean, but I mean, is that kind of what happened with you? Because you said, I mean, when it came to acting, memorizing lines and everything, you were just like, you know what, let me hold that camera and just tell me when to start shooting, right?
Yeah, I've got what they call a face for radio.
There you go, there you go.
I'm definitely not an actor. Never even really comprehended acting. Just wasn't my thing. Even when it's funny, because even when we did those movies, with my friend in like 8th and 9th grade, like I would always be the camera guy or behind the scenes a lot, and he would do acting, or my friends would act. And if they needed me, I would play a role in it. But generally speaking, most of the time, I didn't play many roles
Man,
because it just wasn't something that interested me in that way. But yeah, I mean, in film school, it was funny because I went there. I thought I was going to be a director because I had written scripts in high school. Like I was definitely interested in like that part of storytelling.
right.
When I got there, I just fell in love with cinematography and cameras, and I never even knew what that was. I remember seeing titles on movies said director of photography, and I was like, that looks cool. I wonder what that guy does. Because I assumed back then when I was younger, I assumed the director does everything.
Yeah.
I just figured a magical director just moving cameras with their minds, and I just didn't know. I had no connection to Hollywood or really anyone in my family, my close family, that ever did anything like that. So I remember back then there wasn't cell phone cameras. There wasn't, video cameras were even not rare, but they were more, not everyone had a video camera in their house.
Thank you.
This was like the late 80s, early 90s. So like, I just didn't know. I had no clue as to what, like, how the film industry worked. And when I started to see it, I was like, man, I want to do lighting and like camera stuff. And that looks fun. And that's what I kind of gravitated to pretty quickly in freshman year. And I left film school after 4 years with, a focus on cinematography, not directing.
Nice, man. Now, of course, I mean, you brought up the fact, I mean, back when, I mean, myself, I was in that era. I took photography in high school. It turned out like 5 days in, right? They're doing the whole class. And on Friday, they were like, okay, come Monday, bring your cameras. And I'm like, what cameras? Like, I thought they were going to let us use cameras. So it turned out that, we had to bring our own. I come from a big family. So I was like, man, there's no way in hell, like my mom and dad were going to be able to afford one. And so I had to get out of class, and it killed me because, after that, like, you talked about being the guy behind the camera. I mean, I got into, I was that guy at the, at the venues, at the shows, at the rock concerts or whatever, that was always taking pictures. So I hardly have pictures of myself out there, but I took pictures of everybody else. And, that's kind of why I got into the whole media thing. I was doing, I still do combat sports, but, cage side, ring side. And I actually, after a while, I was like, you know what, man, I started taking pictures of the other camera guys, like different, they had their own companies. I mean, everybody, for the most part, we were all pretty cool with each other. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a picture when I get a chance of him doing photos, and I will send it to him. And they're like, oh, dude, like, thanks, man, because I knew how that felt, So we kind of, after a while, like everybody kind of doing the same thing, we just kind of do ourselves a little favor and take a photo of us taking pictures. And at least we're like, yeah, I was there, behind the camera the whole time. But it makes sense, man. I mean, like yourself, like I'm not big when it comes to video. I started doing audio in the beginning when it came to podcasting, and it just, after a while, they were like, man, who are you talking to? So I said, you know what, let me start doing video. I started putting the camera on my guests, and everybody's like, well, who are they talking to? And I'm like, man. So I said, you know what, let's run this, and make it to where it's not awkward, and everybody gets to see who's behind the camera, But it's pretty cool, man. But like yourself, I mean, there's a lot of, when I went to high school, majority of my friends were artists. A lot of them came out doing theater, music, tattooing. I mean, whatever, But everybody was onto something, and I was always that one guy that I couldn't do anything. I was just like, man, like, what do I do? I used to skateboard, but I was like, man, I was like that guy that kept everything together. I was just like so I kind of stuck with that. It's just throughout life, I've always been the guy that knows everything, and okay, what we're doing, come over here. And I mean, I had to get myself a job, so that was it, But let me ask you. I mean, of course, you talked earlier as far as growing up and not having family doing this. I mean, so nobody else in your family's involved with doing movies, making movies, or other.
Well, yeah. Now my brother does.
Okay.
He got into it after I did, because he was he still is, but he back then he was in a rock band, like a heavy metal kind of punk band, and
Nice.
that was his focus. And then when I went to college, I think because like he grew up the same way I did, so he saw all the movies and all that. He loved all that stuff. So like he just saw me in film school and kind of was like, oh, that looks cool, and so he kind of like eventually moved up to New York with me because we I don't know if I said it, but we lived in Tampa, Florida. That's
Yeah.
where I went to high school and everything. And so like he came up to New York with me and then he got into it. So yeah, him and he does like indie films just like I do. He lived in New Jersey.
Oh,
Um
wow.
but
Okay.
yeah, I guess you know what the reason I brought that up is because it just I think a lot of people can relate to that in that movies is kind of a weird thing because it takes a lot of people to do it, and especially if you're not really aware of how it's a little different now. Like if you're a younger person now, it's a lot more people are more aware of video and how to film things because our
Oh,
phones and everything. But it's hard to break in, and especially to have a sort of context for what filmmaking is if you don't know other people doing it. If you're not a part of that industry, or at least know, because it is a, like you said earlier, it's a who you know kind of thing, but also what you know. Because if you're not really aware, it takes a lot to like figure out like, okay, so there's a sound guy who's recording the actors' voices. Oh, and then there's like a person running around putting props on the set decorating. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's like I just didn't know any of that. So it was a learning curve to sort of, and I remember when I went to film school, a lot of the people in my class were older than me and had a lot more experience than me. And a lot of them were like, "Oh, you don't know what that is?" And I'm like, "Nah, I never heard of mission," or you know what I mean? Like and so it was a steep learning curve to sort of get, but it was fun because I did it all. Like I did sound on a short film. I did boom,
cool, man.
boom mic, like all that stuff was awesome because I had no idea what it was before. So like once it all started I learned it.
Yeah.
That's became kind of like, okay, this is what this is what this is what this is. And the thing is, for me, I never wanted to be penciled in as one thing.
Right.
I didn't want to be a person that was like, oh, so he's the guy that does like fancy commercials, but he doesn't know how to do a documentary, or he's a documentary guy, he doesn't know how to do fancy commercials, or he's the movie guy, he can't do a wedding video. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't want to be pigeonholed into anything. I want to be able to walk away from this going like I learned how to do most of the elements that is to film something and make something.
No, yeah, that makes sense, man. I mean, especially if you're going to be doing video in general. I mean, I know a lot of the actors that I've talked to from films in the '80s that we used to watch. Probably still do, right? But I always ask them, like, man, you know what? I mean, as far as character, you've always been in horror movies, and they're like, no, no, no. Like, I was in a couple other films, and they're like, man, reason we did this was so we wouldn't get typecast, because it's like they don't want you to be like, oh, well, he only does horror when opportunities are coming left and right, and it kind of makes sense, you want to make yourself available. I mean, it's kind of it's funny to hear now, but a lot of these actors from back when, I'm like, man, how did when you got that role, like, what were you thinking? And they're like, man, I just wanted to get paid, man. Like everybody's trying to get jobs, we didn't think like, oh, we're gonna be here 30, 40 years later, people are still watching this. And he said, man, he said, for that one, movie, I must have done like 10, 15 auditions that day, and that's the one that got me. So that's the one I did. And I'm like, man, and, people don't think about that because, yeah, I mean, if you're an artist or if you're an actor, making movies, I mean, it's hard because a lot of people, everybody's looking for jobs, everybody's looking for roles. And, you kind of have to, hone your craft, make yourself as far as like open to be doing all sorts of characters, not just like the same one over and over, But man, let me ask you. I mean, earlier you said as far as being an actor, I mean, you said you wouldn't get on there, but have you ever thought about doing voice acting? Because you kind of did that with the GI Joes, right?
Yeah, it's funny. So yeah, Destiny Soria, a filmmaker in San Antonio, she's awesome. She was in my movie No Promised Land.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
an amazing actor, director, and writer. She put an ad out on Facebook looking for a voice person, and it's funny, that is something I would be open to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like, again, I'm not even like, I don't even know how, like, it's an industry and a world that I'm not familiar with. Like, I know, I guess, I would do a tape or something. So I texted her. I was like, hey, let me try for it. So she sent me the lines and I did, I didn't get the job, but I was like, I'll try for it. Cause I can do voices and stuff, like not impersonations, but weird voices and stuff. So that's why I was like, yeah, I mean, if I'm not on camera, that would work
Yeah.
out, you know.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't. I remember it in one of my first short film. Um, it's I we needed someone to get shot in the butt with a BB gun, so I was like, you know what, I'll do it, like whatever. And I on that film I wasn't doing any camera work, so the DP was able to shoot me and everything, and so I just said, screw it, I'll do it instead of trying to find someone last minute to
Yeah.
jump in there. So yeah, so I've done a little bit of that kind of thing, but
Right. Like a stand-in, right? I mean, for the most part, you're a target, but yeah, you're in the film, man.
yeah, exactly.
And I mean, of course, you said earlier, I mean, you didn't get that part as far as for her movie, right? But I mean, are you still looking at doing such? I mean, putting yourself out
Not actively. I mean, I'm open to it if I saw something. If I saw something online, local filmmaker or whatever, and I was like,
there?
whatever, it's an audition, I'll try. If it's an audition, especially because I don't have anything online to share, it's something I would try for if I think I can pull it off. You know,
Cool.
it's like I said, it's an arena that I'm so not like I don't know anything about. You
Yeah.
know, I know a little bit about acting in terms of like how auditions work because I'm on the other side of that
Right.
in
Right.
terms of voiceover because I've never done any like animated films or anything where I've needed voiceover. I've done some corporate things where we needed voiceover work for where I didn't do the voice, but I
Yeah.
casted a voiceover person, but never that kind of thing. So it's like it'd be a steep learning curve. It's definitely not anything I'm like actively looking out for. But like I said, if I saw something on Facebook or something, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll try out for that.
Nice, man. Well, that's interesting, man. I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, the year's still young, so we'll see if we can hear your voice out there somewhere. But man, I mean, tell us. I mean, of course, from doing shorts, you said like with your friend back in the '80s, when it came to actually making movies. I mean, which was your first one that you actually like wrote, directed, and ran yourself?
Yeah. So around 2004, I got an idea at that from 1990 from 98 or 97 to 2004. I worked primarily as a camera person in like television and movies, things like that in New York. And then I don't know, I just kind of like 2004, I was just kind of like, man, I want to. It was funny, I didn't even set out to make anything. This character came to me, and I don't know why it came to me. It was weird, but I just kind of that script wrote itself. It's a short film on YouTube called Miguel Angel Jesus, and it's just a silly, dark comedy. But the character just kind of flowed to me, and the shots, everything kind of just came to me. I was like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do here. And I got a little bit of funding from some business friends of two business partner friends of mine to help me make it. Hired a bunch of my friends that at the time were really good at what they do. I had a great cinematographer, a great editor, producer, and so they all came on, and we made the film. And we shot it in 2005. I wrote it in 2004, and I'm really proud of it. I mean, it's definitely like it's got some serious craftsmanship to it because like I said, I was as fortunate to have a crew of friends that were really freaking talented. So they all helped me build and make it. A great actor who was also a friend of mine who I wrote it for. I had him in mind. And so, yeah, I mean, it was, but I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I only knew how to direct from watching others do it as a cinematographer. I
Oh,
didn't know how to do, I had never been in that seat. So like, there was a lot of learning about like, okay, how do I navigate, my actor? How do I navigate this with the cinematographer? How do I get the vision across? Blah blah blah. And it was an awesome experience, very stressful. But I mean, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But I definitely, it was funny because after that, I was like, okay, you know, I got that out of my system. Went back to shooting, movies and commercials and whatever else.
yeah.
And and then I got another itch a couple years later, shot another short film, and it was kind of like that's where it was like I could tell that it was brewing inside. It's
Yeah.
something I wanted to do. I was like, okay, so this isn't just like it started to become an itch that I need to scratch more often, kind of thing.
Nice, man. No, and of course, I mean, I had looked at your IMDb earlier. Now, as far as films, I mean, Domestic Hell, I mean, you're the writer on there, No Promised Land, like you mentioned earlier. When it comes to writing, are these ideas that you've had in your head? I mean, like things that you're kind of like, you know what, let me write on this, or is it from something you've seen or the news? I mean, where do you get these ideas from?
Most of them have come just from sort of like just kind of daydreaming, and thinking up kind of scenarios.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know that like for a long period of time in my life, I looked at life almost like a movie. So like everything I experienced and like witnessed or saw or whatever inhabited, I was always like almost looking at it through the lens of a camera in my mind. Oh, that's an inch. Oh, what a great story that is. And I always kind of obsessed with that. And even to a detriment, I would argue, just to a degree, because I was like, all right, dude, like you're in the real world. Focus on the real world. Not life isn't a movie. And so a lot of it just comes out of like sort of framing things. Like for instance, No Promised Land, right, is about a mother caught in a sordid love, affair with this dude and has a baby and all this stuff just gets out of control. And that I drive a lot for my job. I drive to Houston, Dallas, wherever. And so I drive a lot. So I was driving and I was thinking about, well, what if there's like a mother carjacks a car after a horrible incident happens with her 3-year-old son?
Yeah.
And then like it just sort of goes from there. And then it just unfolded like, okay, then what would the plot points be? What's the story about? How do we frame this story? Like, and it just kind of comes out of that. So usually that's my process. It usually be kind of like, I'll think of a scenario, and then the scenario will sort of just unfold into like a bigger story, it'll just start to come. And a lot of times they fall flat, I'll have ideas that come out and I'm just kind of like, I think about them and then I'm like, and I let them go. Or I have a ton of notes in my phone, in my notepad, where it's just like long-winded things about some story. And I don't know, 80% of them are probably never going to be made. And I won't ever look at again, probably.
Man, well, I mean, you never know. I mean, as far as the ideas, like you said, I mean, maybe you'll be daydreaming tomorrow and think of something else,
Definitely.
Finish the story, man.
That will happen. And the
let me
news,
ask you,
like
go
you said,
ahead.
I mean, the news and like current events and like things like that, like they're an incredible bastion of like amazing to grab ideas. I mean, always there's stuff going on in the news where you're like, oh, that's in a dude did that to his wife or whatever the story is, and you're just like, that'd be an amazing movie.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, especially here in San Antonio, man, there's so many crazy things been going on, and I'm thinking, man, like what the hell is going through that guy's head or that lady's head, because it's a crazy world, man. I mean, it's like you see it every day, and it's just, I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, there was one in the news earlier, and I won't talk about it just because it was just sad, the fact that the situation happened, but it's just people going through, and these are youngsters too, man. So I don't know what they're stressing about. I mean, I'm over here with a mortgage payment and bills, right? But
I know, exactly.
but but let me ask you this though, man. I wanted to ask you about this one because this is the one that's actually streaming right now.
Yes, sir.
Now, when it comes to the Mummy Murders, I mean, it is about a serial killer. I liked it, man. It was like the whole the fact that he's basically not so much being interviewed, but I mean, in the movie itself, I mean, and it's been behind you the whole time, and people have been watching, right? Like, they could have been watching already, but I mean, I liked it because it was like a documentary. It was more, in detail. It goes in depth. Now, the serial killer itself, the storyline, how did that one come about, or what's going on that you saw? You were like, man, like, you know what? Let me start putting this together.
Yeah, so I watched. There's a movie called, I think it's called Lansky, with I can't think of his name, but anyway, it's about Meyer Lansky, the mob guy, and it was just a lot of it's just they meet every day because he's like writing a book about him, and they meet every day and they talk about like his life. So I was just like, I really liked that film, but I was like, what if it was like that, but it was a serial killer? And then what if it was more kind of wasn't planned, it was sort of more out of nowhere kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then I was working with someone named William Donahue, who used to live in San Antonio. He's from Texas, but he lives in Seattle now. But amazing, amazing, amazing writer. And I just asked him, say, hey, check this out. Would this be anything you'd be interested in writing with me? And he's like, yeah, there's a lot we could do with this. And, he wrote most of it from that point on. And he built out this incredible serial killer character right over my shoulder right there, Jason Scarborough from San Antonio as well. Amazing actor. And then it just kind of like, he would write and I would give him little notes. I'll make this longer, shorten this, whatever. But I mean, he did the yeoman's work and it just built out like, but the biggest challenge of it is that how do we make a conversation over a table in real time? How do we make that interesting? Where it's not just going to be a guy, you know what I mean? Like just talking, right? Because cinema is a visual art. Like a play, yeah, you could have two people just talking, right? But in cinema, it's visual. So I was like, a lot of it was to build out, well, what are we going to show about what he says? So I would go through Will's script writing and find like, okay, so he's talking about this. So well, let's show this, or he's talking about this, or let's show this, or let's do flashback here or whatever. So it's just kind of like figuring out, that story. But, a lot of it, like I said, Will is amazing, amazing Texas writer. We lost him to Washington State, but that's okay. And, but yeah, I mean, it's just really proud of it. It's on Gravitas Ventures. It's on all the streamings. This is Tubi behind me, but it's on Amazon Prime and a bunch of other places. But, it was a process to make it, but, really proud of it.
No, yeah, because I mean, I sat through it, man. I watched it. I enjoyed it. The whole documentary feeling, man. It's just one of those. I'm real big when it comes to like storytelling, I guess you can say, but I can actually sit there and then the fact that they go into detail, the videos, of course, help because you're kind of like back and forth, like, oh, damn, okay, this is what happened. The victims. I mean, everything that happened in the film. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, man. For those that are watching, I mean, of course, it is streaming, so definitely, check it out. As far as projects like now, have you been writing since? I mean, are you writing on working on something right now?
Yeah, we have another one that we partnered with the same groups on this movie. We partnered with on this movie that we have wrapping up now called Into the Gravel Pit.
Yeah.
And that's about a bunch of young people messing around with drugs in a way kind of gets out of control. So that really excited about that one. A little gorier than this film. More kind of like psychological thriller type vibe. So that one's in post and kind of getting ready to, get that one out there soon. So keep a lookout for that. And on that one, our partnerships got it like really helpfully got us in with Lisa Wilcox from Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. She's in it, and Paul Taylor. So it was amazing working with them and Samantha Mackley and Mikel Dawkins. These are San Antonio and Austin actors. Riley Rodriguez is in it. I mean, got a lot of local talent in it. Shot all around town. So it's exciting, and we're always writing new scripts. I just hooked up with a new with Fourth Quarter Entertainment, and I are joining forces. And Marlon Minifee's company, and we've got a documentary. We got one documentary we're filming, and then one in development, and then a horror movie in development, and then working with Latinx Magazine to do another film. So I mean, a lot going on. I'm grateful, and that's why I love it. I love every second of it.
No, and I was gonna say it's a good thing that you can't just sit still, right? I mean, you like being all over the place, so it kind of works out for you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very, very jittery.
And let me ask you, I mean, you say your brother's still out there in New Jersey, right? So I mean, do you guys like talk on? I mean, do you guys talk about ideas? I mean, is there something that you guys are going to be working with in the future?
No, not really. I mean, he's doing his own thing up there. I mean, we did a film that's online. It's called Semester's End.
Yeah.
My brother's named Zach Bressler. He's been doing a lot more music lately. I'm
Oh,
sure he's going to do another movie at some point, but he also has 3 kids. I have one, so he's very busy man. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's never out of the question, But because we have, we did about 3. Yeah, I think we've done about 3 movies together way back because we used to live together in Brooklyn, New York. So
right.
when we did, and we were both single idiots, and we were just make movies, kind of like honestly, it was like what I did with my friend, just a better scale because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
We used to make movies in Brooklyn, like once, twice a year. We would just write something up and film it, So, but yeah, who knows? You never know. I mean, I'm just excited because there's so much awesome talent in this city.
Yeah.
And as you know, because you've interviewed some great people, CJ Goodwin's amazing. I saw that interview. There's so much amazing talent, and I know a lot of them, and we all collaborate, and whether it be we just collaborate by chatting like this or not online, or we collaborate together. Like, hey man, I need someone for this shoot. Can you do this shoot for me? Or blah blah blah.
Nice.
And it's exciting, and it's only going to get better. I think San Antonio is one of the futures of film in the U.S. because it's getting more decentralized from California and New York. So I think San Antonio, like Texas, is going to be a huge place, like New Mexico, places like that. So I'm psyched.
No, yeah, because I mean, and I had talked about that with the previous guests also, as far as like everybody coming over here, not just San Antonio, but I mean Texas in general. I mean, because of that, we're getting a lot of fresh talent, a lot of people with a lot of pull, if anything. Of course, being out there in California, but it makes it interesting for a lot of people. Myself, I mean, I can only imagine. Um, I cover the whole combat sports aspect of it, and because of that, I've seen a lot more gyms open up because of the fighters and instructors from other states moving in, and it just adds to what we have now, which is great. So of course, I mean, I can't wait, man. I mean, there's a lot of talent, like you said. I'm looking forward to the rest of this year. A lot of everybody's dropping new films coming up, like like you said earlier, the one you're collaborating with. But I mean, let me ask you this. I mean, when it comes to filming, have you ever done any? I mean, you said you do writing, but have you ever thought about writing a book or putting this on paper?
I have, yeah. When COVID hit, I started writing my sort of memoir. I mean, it sounds obnoxious, but I just started writing down stories from my career as a camera guy because I've met a lot of famous people just through proxy, through shoots and stuff, and had a lot of weird experiences because when you do documentary and reality TV and these kind of things, you run into very strange circumstances. So I started writing it down. I figure like when I'm closer retirement age, I'm going to probably actually write it. Yeah, I think I'll have more stories, but also like my stories will be even further in the past and kind of crazier. The younger people will be like, what? So, but yeah, I thought about that. And I always fantasize about writing a novel or something, but I don't think I have the patience at this stage of my life, but maybe someday.
No, for sure, man. I mean, that's one of the things because when it comes to the Mummy Murders, I mean, when I was watching it, it felt like a book. It felt like something I was reading. It was real, the detail was great, and it kind of threw me down that little because I used to read a lot, man. I mean, that's one of the things with me, when it came to like middle school, high school. I was a loner, so I spent a lot of time, just chilling by myself, reading novels or books. But I enjoyed it, like I said, man. So for those, watching the video, of course, streaming, man. I mean, it's on 5 different platforms. So,
we need all the support we can get.
No, for sure, man. But let me ask you.
Go ahead.
I
was going to say that it's hard. It's we need eyeballs because that's the only way we stay alive. Just like with YouTube video, it's the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Subscriptions and interest. I mean, if we don't get that, then we die on the vine, so to speak. So that's why I'm really, by the way, so grateful to you for doing this for all us filmmakers, artists in town. Like, your shows and these kind of shows they help us get the word out, and it's just so huge, important to us. So very, very grateful.
No, no, I appreciate you guys, man. And of course, I mean, it's a different platform when it comes to exposure. I mean, I've been doing media when it comes to combat sports and doing this for over a year. But yeah, man, it's all about getting people to view and see what you guys are up to. Because of course, back in the day, you know, when people were making movies, if you didn't hear about it, you would see it on a shelf somewhere in a VHS tape, and you're like, man,
Yeah.
when did this come out? You know, but now there's so many streams, you know, there's so many things out there that people can just, you know, purchase, you know, get an app and just watch films that, you know, it's like I was telling my buddy the other day, because we were talking about movies, and I said, man, I'm still trying to catch up with 1994, man. Like, I mean, there's so many films that have been released, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm gonna watch a new one, and then I'm gonna watch this one I haven't seen in a while, and I kind of have to rotate them. But
It's like
for
a full.
a good while, I was watching two a day, man. I went back to one a day, but it's just, you know, one of those things that I got to fit in.
Yeah, understood.
But let me ask you, I mean, of course, when you said the one behind you, I mean, you've been showcasing it this whole time, but the Mummy Murders, the platforms as far as they're being streamed, you said it was on Apple TV and what other ones?
It's on Tubi for free. Amazon Prime, if you have Amazon Prime, I think it's free. Like you said, Apple TV. It's on all these video on demands like Spectrum and different cable outlets and things like that. Vudu, it's also on Vudu streaming, and then it's on sale. The DVD's on sale if you're a hard copy person. You like that kind of thing. It's on Walmart, Barnes and Nobles, all those kind of places for the hard copy type thing. So yeah, and you know, definitely if you watch it, give a review.
Yeah.
And if you want to put it in the bottom of the comment section of this YouTube video or wherever, because it helps to know what people think, you know, because I learn a lot from the viewers, you know, like, oh, they didn't like this or they thought this sucked or whatever. It just helps grow as an artist, you know.
No, for sure. And I was going to say too, because when with the DVD format, I mean, is this available on your website as well, or just some of the store locations?
Just the store locations. I don't have like a way to mass produce it. Yeah. It's all the Gravitas Ventures does. It's all through third party. So any ordering of that would be, I think you can go on Gravitas Ventures website, but like I said, it's on Amazon Prime. You can buy a DVD or Walmart or a place like that.
No, yeah, you see, and that's one of the things too, because I mean, I have DVDs, you know, VHS all over the place, and I collect them because when it comes to streaming, a lot of times they cut them, you know, or they don't show them after a while, and it's like, man, I'd rather have the actual hard copy and know I can go to it anytime. So
yeah, I know exactly. That's huge, huge.
Yeah. And let me ask you, earlier you were saying growing up, I mean, your parents had a VHS. Do they still own a lot of this stuff, or?
I don't think so. No. You know what? Actually, no, that's not true. They do have their VHS tapes still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I might want to grab some of those down the road.
I was gonna say maybe that film that you guys did as a kid is on there, man. Or did you guys put it on VHS?
I don't think those are. My early film school stuff, I still have a VHS of.
Okay.
I don't think those things. Like I said, it was my friend's father's camera.
Yeah.
So it would have been him doing that, and I don't think we ever did that.
Probably recorded over, man.
We were goofballs, man. We didn't even know, you know, we were just like, whatever.
No, for sure, man. But here you are, man. So of course, a lot of great things came out of that. Now, one more thing. Earlier, you were talking about you going to school, right? You went to school for film. Your brother got into it. Did he go to school as well, or did he kind of go under you to learn as far as the works ins and outs?
No, he did. He did. He went to University of Tampa in Florida to film school there as well. He had come up as a musician. I shot his music video, directed his music video, and when I was in college. And he fell in love with it. And then when he went back to Tampa, but home, that's where he lived at the time, he decided, he's like, I'm going to film school. So he went to film school. So yeah, I mean, University of Tampa, I went to SVA. Yeah.
Man. Now, growing up, was there a lot of rivalry? I mean, did you guys used to compete against each other on a lot of things?
Oh yeah.
And is this the same thing now when they came to the school, to the film, or is it?
No, not really. I mean, he's older than me, but because he got to it later,
yeah.
I was more advanced in terms of the career than he was. Like I said, just because he was a musician first. So, and also he does camera and stuff, but he's more into directing and producing. You know what I mean? Whereas I was more camera than directing. So like, it's not it's not like a rivalry in that, like,
Right.
and then I would hire him for jobs, things like that when he started doing it. So I was like, that's not a good rivalry to have because I'm hiring him,
There you go.
rivalry.
Yeah. Man. But let me ask you, man. I mean, I do appreciate you jumping on this, Colin. It's been great. I know. I mean, you guys being local, I know you guys are shooting for the most part locally. I would love to do a lot of the behind the scenes shots, man. I mean, it's right now it's just scheduling, but if there's an opportunity, I definitely want to jump on that. But I want to thank you, man. Thank you for jumping on this. I mean, for those watching this, of course, they can follow you guys on social media now. On Facebook, the Mummy Murders is on there. Instagram, the same, right?
Yep. Mummy Murders on Facebook, Instagram. It's Eating Crab Studios is my Instagram. That's the general studio that encompasses all my films. So, and yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing, and yeah, I definitely will love to work with you in the future. And this was so much fun, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Really great.
No, for sure, man. Don't hang up yet. Everybody out there, of course. Once again, Colin, thank you. This is sPidA, the Coming Soon podcast. Till next time, follow up.